Americans currently have more money sitting in retirement accounts than at any point in human history, and yet they are yanking it back out faster than at any point in the last 20 years. Both of those things are true. Right now, somewhere, a guy is staring at a record account balance on his phone and a withdrawal form on the exact same screen, and his thumb is hovering over the wrong one. If you've ever put money into a retirement account and felt like absolutely nothing happened, you need to stick around today, because we aren't going to talk about needing a six-figure salary. We're fixing the order of operations. To explain this, I want you to picture three people: Ella, a 37-year-old dental hygienist in Reno; Josiah, a 44-year-old who runs an HVAC crew outside Toledo; Olivia, a 29-year-old claims adjuster in Charlotte. They all get standard paychecks, but they have three very different financial leaks. One of them is going to end this decade with almost nothing, and it isn't the one you'd guess. Let's start with the destination. Almost nobody prices out what never working again actually costs. The standard rule in finance is 25 times your annual spending, not your income, your spending. If we take the average American household spending of around $78,000 a year and multiply it by 25, the price tag to never work again is roughly $2 million. But where does America actually stand? According to Vanguard, the average 401k balance just hit a record of around $168,000. Sounds great, right? Until you look at the median, the person standing exactly in the middle of the pack. They only have about $44,000. If you use the standard 4% withdrawal rule on $44,000, that gives you $147 a month. That's a tank of gas and a mid-sized grocery run. That is not a retirement. That's a Tuesday. The gap between $2 million and $44,000 isn't about who works hard. Ella, Josiah, and Olivia all work incredibly hard. The gap is about sequence. Almost everyone attacks this problem in the wrong order, and that wrong order quietly eats 15 or 20 years of your life. So today, we are going through the 5 steps you need to do with your paycheck. 4 of these aren't even investments. They are leak repairs. Step 1, the only guaranteed return. Step 1 is the only guaranteed return anyone will ever offer you in your entire life. And right now, it is sitting in your payroll portal behind a password you set in 2019 and completely forgot. I'm talking about your employer match. Employer matching contributions have quietly climbed to a record high. The average employer promises a match worth about 4.7% of your pay. What this means is your employer has agreed to hand you additional money in cash just for doing paperwork. It is the least American transaction ever invented, and most people walk right past it because it requires finding a website and typing a number into a box. Let's look at Ella. She makes $60,000 a year. Her plan matches 50 cents on the dollar up to 6% of her pay. If she puts in $3,600, her employer adds $1,800. That is an instant 50% return before the stock market does anything at all. Nothing else in finance offers that. Not crypto, not real estate, not your brother-in-law supplement company. If Ella does only this, that free employer money alone, compounded for 30 years at a conservative 7%, becomes over $260,000. That's just from the portion she never even contributed. But here is the trap: automatic enrollment. Companies auto-enroll you now, which is great, but they usually put you at a default rate of like 2% or 3%, which is below the full match. You get the warm, fuzzy feeling of participating while leaving a chunk of your own compensation on the table. Roughly 1 in 4 workers miss out on part of their match, losing an average of $1,300 a year. That's not a savings mistake. That is a pay cut that you volunteered for. Go into your portal and make sure you are contributing enough to get every single penny of that match. Step 2, buy yourself 90 days of saying no. Step 2 is the one everybody skips, but it is the only reason Step 1 survives. You need to buy yourself 90 days of saying no.
This feels like the opposite of building wealth because it's just cash. It sits there, it does nothing exciting, and it is the single reason some people's investments make it to year 10 and other people's don't. Right now, only 30% of Americans say they could cover a $1,000 emergency out of savings. The median cushion is thinning, and we can see exactly where it's going. People are raiding their 401ks. Hardship withdrawals are hitting record highs.
The median hardship withdrawal last year was $1,900. Let me show you the brutal math on what that actually cost you. Left alone for 30 years at 7%, that $1,900 becomes $14,400. But if you withdraw it early, after the 10% penalty and ordinary income taxes, you actually only receive about $1,300 in your pocket. So the trade you are making is roughly $14,000 in future dollars for $1,300 in present-day dollars. That is the worst exchange rate available in America. Josiah made this exact trade. His van broke down, his kid needed a dental crown, and he had no cash. So he raided his 401k for $2,000 and told himself he'd put it back. Let me tell you a secret. Nobody ever puts it back. It's just gone. The fix is boring on purpose. 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a separate account at a bank that you do not have a debit card for. If 3 months feels too big, start with 1 month. 1 month of expenses converts a catastrophe into a mere inconvenience. And please, put it somewhere that actually pays you. The national average savings account yields 0.38%. That's a rounding error. High-yield savings accounts are paying north of 4% right now. On $10,000, that's the difference between making $38 a year and $400 a year. Same money, same access, just a different bank. Step 3. The guaranteed 22% return. Number 3 is a guaranteed return wearing the costume of a monthly bill. You need to buy off the 22%. The average interest rate on credit cards actually carrying a balance is now over 22%. Americans owe $1.25 trillion on credit cards. Here's what carrying a $6,500 balance at 22% actually looks like. If you just pay the minimum, you will be paying it off for 21 years. You will pay over $17,000 in total, and $11,000 of that is pure interest. The minimum payment is not a plan for getting out of debt. It is the lender's business model printed politely on your statement. If you pay off a 22% credit card, you are getting a guaranteed, tax-free, zero volatility 22% return on your money. Compare that to the stock market. Vanguard currently anticipates annualized returns of maybe 4% to 6% for U.S. stocks over the next decade. You have a guaranteed 22% sitting right next to a hopeful 5%. This isn't even close. This is why order matters. You get the 401k match first because 50% instant beats everything. Then you build the cash cushion because without it, you'll just end up back on the credit card by spring. Then you pay off the debt. And only then do we move to the slow accounts.
Step 4. The secret weapon. Which brings us to step 4. The account almost nobody in this country uses correctly. Everyone knows about the 401k and the IRA. The limits are high, and for the average person, maxing them out feels like a hostage situation where you have to hand over half your paycheck. But I want to talk about the Health Savings Account, or HSA. It is quietly the best account in the American tax code. Here's how it's designed. Money goes in untaxed, grows untaxed, and comes out untaxed for medical costs. 3 tax breaks. Nothing else in the entire tax code does that. But here is the absolute tragedy of the HSA. 90% of the money sitting in these accounts is just sitting in cash. It is a retirement account wearing a checking account costume. Olivia had an HSA for 4 years and never once logged in. Her employer deposited $500 a year, and she thought it was just some insurance thing. But if she had fully funded it and actually invested it in the market, $4,400 a year invested for 30 years at 7% becomes $415,000. Tax-free on the way in, tax-free on the way up, tax-free on the way out. She was 4 clicks away from that and didn't even know the clicks existed. If you have a high-deductible health plan, fund the HSA and invest the money. If you don't qualify for an HSA, your version of Step 4 is the Roth IRA. Put the money in, and for the love of God, actually invest it into an index fund so it doesn't just sit in cash.
Step 5. Buy your raises back. Finally, Step 5. This is the one that actually decides if you get to retire, because your savings rate is the only variable in this equation that ever really mattered. You have to buy your raises back. Right now, the U.S. personal saving rate is sitting at a dismal 2.6%. If you save 2.6% of your income and earn a reasonable 5% return, math dictates that it will take you 80 years to hit that 25 times spending number. You would have had to start working as a toddler to retire. But watch what happens when you just turn the savings dial. If you save 10%, it takes 52 years. If you save 20%, it takes 37 years. If you save 30%, it drops to 28 years. Same market, same returns, same person. The only thing that changed is the fraction of your paycheck that never entered your checking account. Olivia was saving 6% when she started paying attention. She is at 14% now. She didn't get a huge promotion, she didn't move cities, and she didn't start a side hustle. So how did she do it? When you get a raise, your lifestyle expands to meet it within about 2 months. Within 8 weeks, that raise has been fully digested by slightly nicer groceries and a streaming subscription you forgot you authorized. The money gets absorbed like a paper towel commercial, and the spill is your retirement. You have to intercept it before it lands. The very same day you get a raise or a bonus, log into your portal and increase your contribution rate by the exact same amount. If you get a 3% raise, bump your 401k contribution up by 3%. If you do this every year for 30 years, never once cutting your current lifestyle, you end up with $2.3 million. By the final year, you are saving $85,000 annually without giving up a single thing you had at the start. You bought your retirement using money your brain never got used to spending.
So where does that leave our 3 people? Ella got the employer match on day 1, but she skipped the emergency fund. So when her transmission blew, she raided her accounts and went back to 0. Josiah earns the most out of all 3 of them, but he tried to invest aggressively before paying off his 22% credit cards. He was out of order, so he ended the decade with almost nothing. Olivia, she logged into her HSA, invested it, and turned on auto-escalation for her raises. She earns the least, but she ends up the furthest ahead. Nothing on this list requires you to earn a massive salary. It's just moving dollars you already generate into positions where they stop leaking and start compounding. So do one thing tonight, not this weekend, tonight. Open your payroll portal, find whatever your employer matches, and make your contribution meet that number. It's the highest return you will ever be offered. If this video helped you, hit subscribe so we can keep fixing the math together. I'll see you in the next one.